Hello everyone and welcome to the first encounter of Magnus Carlsen and Liren in a longer time format since Liren became World Classical Champion. Now this is not classical time format, this is slow rapid, although I do agree with some of you in the comments on the previous video that it's more of a quick rapid than, it's more of a quick classical than slow rapid. Officially it is the slow rapid, and they do use rapid ratings for these games. And last time they played a classical game was in Tata Steel of last year in 2023, and also Magnus had white, Ding had black, and the game ended in a draw. So let's check it out. A much anticipated matchup. Magnus with the white pieces opens with pawn to d4. And yesterday, only Magnus had decisive games. He lost one game, he won one game. All of the other games ended in a draw. So let's see what happens here. We have d4 by Magnus. Knight to f6, pawn to c4, e6, knight to f3, and pawn to d5. The queen's gambit declined is on the board. C captures on d5, e captures, and knight to c3. We have pawn to c6, and standard here is bishop to g5. It is by far the most played move here. Second is queen to c2. Much less played than bishop to g5, but the move Magnus plays is very rare in this position. Bishop to f4, and Magnus did use it to take down Yanni Pomnishi in the Sinquefield Cup of 2022. So here we have bishop to f5, also nicely developing the light square bishop, e3, knight b to d7, and now again bishop to d3 is what is usually played here, but Magnus goes knight to h4, goes after Ding's bishop on f5, and the question is, what is Magnus trying to achieve here? Probably avoid trading the light square bishops, because if you go for bishop to g4, which is sort of the top move recommended by the engine, then knight back to f3 makes sense, as now you can develop with bishop to d3. And if black goes back with bishop to f5, then okay, you will play bishop to d3, but if black wants to go knight h5, because you're sort of giving black the opportunity to seize the advantage, then something like h3, bishop captures, queen captures, knight captures, queen captures, and you get this position where white was able to keep the light square bishop to be used for attacking purposes. But after knight h4, Ding does not go for bishop g4, he goes for bishop to e4 instead, invites pawn to f3, which Magnus goes for bishop to g6, and now Magnus strikes with pawn to g4. Bishop to e7, we have knight captures on g6, h captures, and now there is a game where queen to b3 was played, and interestingly was played in a classical event this year, with white winning the game, but here we have queen to c2, and it is now as of move 12 that we have a completely new game. So okay, Ding continues with knight to f8, he wants to remaneuver the knight to e6 to put pressure on the bishop on f4, queenside castles by Magnus, and now knight to e6. We have bishop to g3, not allowing the trade of knight for bishop, and bishop to d6 now going after the trade. We have bishop back to e1, Magnus nicely placing the bishops on e1 and f1 squares. Queen to c7, putting more pressure on that h2 pawn. You couldn't capture it because the queen is also defending it, but now Magnus just plays king to b1, and he invites Ding to capture on h2, but capturing on h2 would be, well, maybe it's not a blunder, but it's a very close to a lost game, because if rook captures on h2, rook captures and bishop captures, the problem is this g5 move. And now what do you play here? If you capture with the knight, then f4 with a double attack. The knight is attacked and the bishop is attacked, and you're just gonna have to, well, probably give up the bishop here for some pawns, and the white will have a much better position. Or you go knight to h7, but it's not much better. Still f4, and you will have to play bishop captures on f4 in order to prevent queen captures on h2. So, okay, you can play it, bishop captures knight, pawn captures knight, queen captures even, and you will play bishop to d2 to prevent the loss of the g5 pawn, then maybe bishop to e2, depending where the black queen goes, and white will be better. Whether it will be enough to win the game, sorry about that, it's hard to say, but you know, you don't want to give Magnus that. So here Ding just castles queenside, and now pawn to h4. Okay, we have king to b8. Ding also wants to get his king to a safer square, and rook to g1 now. We have pawn to a6, and now rook to g2. preparing to bring the rook over to c2 if the c files opens up, and you kind of do expect the Ding to play c5 at some point. So pawn to g5 first, asking Magnus, do you want to trade on g5? Magnus says, nope, I would like to advance my pawn, and now pawn to c5. And now Magnus's rook to g2 move definitely makes sense. We have pawn captures, bishop captures, and now knight to a4. Preparing to move the queen and also bring the rook to c2. Bishop captures on e3, giving up a pawn, and now queen to b3. Preparing rook to c2. We have d4 by Ding, and now it seems also that maybe Ding blundered the a6 pawn. Can you just play bishop captures on a6? Well, you could, but then the rook comes to c8, and there's the threat of queen to c1 check, rook captures, and rook captures on c1 checkmate. So to avoid this, after d4, Magnus first plays rook to c2, and now Ding can't put his queen just anywhere. The queen has to guard the a6 pawn, so queen to d6, guarding the a6 pawn, and now bishop to a5, attacking the rook here. And there's really no good way to save this rook. The problem is if you play rook to c8, then look at this. So rook captures on c8 with check, rook captures, and now the unfortunate or, fortunate queen captures on e3, and you cannot capture as the queen on d6 would hang. And also if you play queen d5, which looks very nice, now the queen is nicely defended, you're attacking the queen and attacking the bishop on a5, just queen back to d2, defending the bishop. So you can resign here. So after bishop to a5, Ding says, all right, queen d5, I will give up the exchange. I'm up a pawn. It's a past d pawn, so maybe it's enough to hold a draw here. Magnus captures on d8. We have queen captures on b3 first, a captures, and of course rook captures on d8. And now knight to c5. Bishop to c4 also a nice move, but Magnus goes for knight to c5, offers a trade of knights, and now knight to d5. Ding wants to bring the knight over to b4, and it is the ideal square for the knight, as it will control the a2 and c2 squares. The bishop controls the c1 square, so the white king will not be able to enter the game, and also Magnus does not have an a pawn or a c pawn to kick away the knight from b4. So b4 is a spectacular square for this knight. Probably why bishop to c4 was a preferred move to knight to c5. But okay, bishop to d3 by Magnus, we have knight to b4, and now knight captures on e6. We have f captures and rook to c5. Waiting to see what Ding will do, and Ding goes rook to d5. He offers a trade of rooks, and this was a good opportunity for Magnus to maybe seize the initiative here. Point being that if you trade rooks here, which was not played in the game, you're kind of forcing Ding to capture with the pawn and mess up his pawn structure, because if you capture with the knight, then bishop to e4, and of course you don't want to allow this trade, then you will just have a rook against bishop, knight to f4, and now king to c2. And after, let's say, b5, you play rook to h1, and you're either going to break through here, or if king to c7, you will just grab more space here, and if king to b6, now rook to h2, and not a lot for black to do here. You're also stopping the knight from entering the game in any meaningful way, and next you will just play h6. Even if black tries forcing you to go back, you will still play h6 and just break through. Captures. And now whether black can survive this or not, probably not, but maybe it's possible. So probably best after rook captures would be to capture with the e pawn, and mess up your pawn structure, but then, for example, bishop to f1, and after king to c7, now you strike with pawn to f4. But without seeing this tactic, it's hard to go for that rook exchange. Point being that if bishop captures, you're gonna take the d4 pawn, and if the g pawn captures, you play g5, h6, and the h pawn becomes unstoppable. So yeah, it was a good opportunity, maybe not for a direct win, but for getting winning chances. Magnus played rook to c4, and they still have a fair amount of time on the clock. Magnus 13 minutes, Ding over 17 minutes, pawn to a5, defending the knight, and now bishop to e4, attacks the rook to d6, and now rook to c5. Magnus goes after the a5 pawn. Again, f4 here is very interesting, because if bishop captures, you can capture on d4. So best is to capture with the g pawn, but it's not winning this time, because after g5 there's d3, and after h6 there's captures, and after d2 there's h7, and rook d8 stops the pawn. But this setup here is just incredible for black. You're not going to be able to make anything out of this position. So instead, Magnus tried rook to c5. He went after the a5 pawn, b6, and now rook back to c4. Ding plays pawn to e5, and now Magnus ran out of moves. There's no more way to get anything into the game, so he just played rook captures on b4. Remember, the knight and bishop are completely cutting off the white king from entering the game, and without the king, which is, as they say, the most important piece in the endgame, you're not going to be able to play this. So Magnus tries rook captures on b4. A captures and king to c2. D3 with check, a very important move, because with king to c2, Magnus wants to play rook to a1, he frees up the d1 square for the king, he plays rook to a8 check, and his position is again very nice. But Ding just gives up a pawn, or gives the pawn back, and says, nope, that's just it. Rook captures on d3, rook captures, we have king captures on d3, and now bishop to c1. Goes after the b2 pawn, Magnus goes king to c4, and now again another elegant move by Ding, king to c7. The problem is, if you capture on b2 and fail to play king to c7, you just allow the white king into the game too much, and after king to e6, there's no more stopping the white king from capturing this pawn, and then the h pawn is just winning. So of course Ding plays king to c7, he gains the opposition. King to d5, and now king to d7. We have king captures on e5, the pawn is irrelevant as the bishops are of opposite color. King to e7, king to f5, and now bishop to d2. Just controlling everything. All of Magnus's pawns are on light squares, all of Ding's pawns are on dark squares, and there's nothing more to be done here. This is okay, this pawn is on a dark square, but it is also a irrelevant one for the game. Even if you take it, it's equal material. So king to g6 going after the pawn, and king to f8 just in time. We have bishop to d5, bishop to c1, we have bishop to c4, and bishop to d2. Of course, not interested in the pawn, as you also have to guard the g5 pawn, bishop to d5, bishop to c1, we have bishop to c4, and bishop to d2. And it was in this move, in this position, on move 48, that Magnus and Ding agreed to a draw, as there is nothing more to be done here, or rather, it's a draw by threefold repetition. So yeah, there we have it. First slower game. Remember, it's not classical. It's just a slower time format. The slow rapid between Magnus and Ding again ends in a draw. But they did face each other not so long ago in that freestyle challenge where Magnus was able to take him down. So yeah, not able to take down the reigning world champion with the white pieces. We'll see what happens next. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Very nicely played by both of them. It was very sharp. Magnus had the advantage, but Ding definitely the one coming out victorious here, as it was not easy to save this game. And yeah, I would like to thank you, Samuel Ovaskainen, David Gotten, Joyful Chess Lover, Yun Young, and Mr. Hoodie Guy for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.